Good morning. I want to thank everyone for joining today's Zoom call on broadband. I am Commissioner Larry Harvey from Putnam County, God's country as we refer to it here in our area. I am current chair of the FAC, Florida Association of Counties Rural Caucus. I am joined by Rural Caucus Vice Chair Commissioner Emma Byrd from Hendry County and the chair of the Small County Coalition, Commissioner John Meeks from Levy County, and Commissioner Terry Burrows, Small County Coalition Board of Directors and NACO Broadband Task Force member. I'd like to begin by providing some context for today's webinar. And it says several weeks ago, and that is partly true, but we can even go back a few more years, that the Rural Caucus has been developing a target list of priorities that it wants to address this year. And these priorities include broadband internet in rural Florida, workforce and affordable housing in rural Florida, and infrastructure in rural Florida roads and bridges. Just to give you a little background, a few years ago, when I was chair of the Rural Caucus, broadband was the big issue, but it's been a moving target. And I think today we're going to bring some focus in on broadband internet in Florida. But first, before I go too far, I'd like to introduce my vice chair of the Rural Caucus, Commissioner Emma Byrd, for any opening remarks she'd like to make.
Good morning, and thank you, Commissioner Harvey. I'm Commissioner Byrd from Hendry County, and whatever you call your county, this is Sugar Town where we at, so we thank you for joining us. We do appreciate everyone that came out this afternoon to participate as we continue to build on broadband, which is a very important issue for all counties in the state of Florida, hoping that you will have a big picture and a big mindset of the needs of the communities in the surrounding counties. So today we want to say thank you for everyone that participated with us, and we're going to thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. Appreciate that very much. Again, what we found in 2020, the year 2020, is that we were thrust into the virtual world. A lot of people were, and we're still having issues with it. And I think the need for broadband, or I know the need for broadband, has really surfaced a lot here in Florida. Next, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Meeks and to provide a few opening remarks. Commissioner Meeks from the Small County Coalition.
Thank you, Chair Harvey. As the chairman of the Small County Coalition, I am pleased to join this call and express our support for the effort and to expand accessible, affordable, reliable, high-speed internet service throughout the state of Florida. The key being affordable and reliable in that statement. Every household, every business in the area of the state should have this capacity. And as you know, closing the digital gap is critical in rural and underserved counties. House Bill 969 created the new Office of Broadband, and the national mapping effort will help provide the best opportunity that we've had to address this effort. Rural Florida has been behind far too long, and we know that internet services are critical to education, economic development, healthcare, public safety, and just enabling our communities to utilize the internet in the same way that citizens in our urban areas are able to. We are requesting that every county adopt a resolution of support and submit it to DEO to enhance, expand, and create access to the internet that is affordable, reliable, and high speed. The Small County Coalition has worked hand in hand with the Rural Caucus leadership and look forward to a future as we will discuss this initiative. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Meeks. Commissioner Burrows, I'd like to call on you for any opening remarks.
I appreciate it, Chairman Harvey. I'm going to just get back, just let us get to the meeting. I think everybody said pretty much what our focus is today. Being placed on the National Broadband Task Force is quite an honor, but it also has a large number of responsibilities, and I'll kind of go over that when it comes up my time to speak today. So back to you, Chairman Harvey.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows. The purpose of today's call is for us to discuss broadband internet service and the digital divide that exists for rural communities. As you may know, recent legislation passed that moved broadband from the Department of Management Services to the Department of Economic Opportunity, creating an Office of Broadband. The legislation tasked DEO with several deliverables. Create a strategic plan to increase the use of broadband internet service in Florida. The plan must include a process to review and verify public input on broadband internet transmission speeds and availability. Build and facilitate local technology planning teams, especially with community members from the areas of education, healthcare, business, tourism, agricultural, economic development, and local government. Encourage public use of internet services through broadband grant programs and to monitor, participate in, and provide input on Federal Communication Commission proceedings that are relative to the geographical availability and deployment of broadband internet in Florida. I'm going to stop from the script for just a moment and speak from the heart about this issue. I mentioned the Rural Caucus over almost 3 years ago was kind of charged with this, and it's such a moving target. And now I believe more than ever, the people on the call that I appreciate and those who are not on the call, we will try to get to, but we have an Office of Broadband now that Governor DeSantis has put into place. I think now we can finally get some traction on the truck spinning out of control. Broadband has been like I said, a very mixed up plan in Florida. I think the next best thing is always out there, but companies are unwilling to do certain things based on they want government subsidies, or they don't want to turn the switch on, or they don't want to put fiber in the ground. And I don't believe they really understand what small and rural counties are going through and the challenges. I bet all of us have a story of when school lets out at 4 o'clock or 3:30 or 4:30, how your internet speeds dive down. And that happens here. So it's nothing unusual. So in saying that, I don't want this to be a webinar where we're preaching at you. That's not what this is about. Today, we want to have a free-flowing discussion regarding actions that you can take as a county to further the progress of broadband. And specifically, we would like to request that you, like Commissioner Meeks said, pass resolutions that support the implementation of broadband in your county. If you don't have a copy of that, we are going to post some of those, and I'm sure Devin will explain that, and or you can get them. The Small County Coalition has them too. Now I'll turn it over to Commissioner Meeks and then to Commissioner Burrows for further comments. Commissioner Meeks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman Harvey. I'll just echo what you said. I mean, this pandemic that we've all suffered through has definitely exposed the shortfall and shortcomings of dependable and reliable internet. Distance learning has been almost non-existent in my county for the elementary school kids and the high school kids. The kids that were trying to go to college, they've all suffered. People who have been forced to work from home, are having to go to our libraries or having to go where they can get on someone's Wi-Fi and basically steal the Wi-Fi in order to be able to do their job and function. And telemedicine is non-existent because of issues with the internet. So, I think that even though we are facing a huge budget shortfall this year, I think this is the year for the legislature to make a move while it's still fresh in everyone's mind that these problems didn't only occur in the rural communities, they occurred throughout Florida because of overloading of the internet and no accessibility. So hopefully everybody will buy in and we can pull together and get this hurdle jumped in this next legislative session, at least get the ball rolling for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Meeks, and I agree with that. I think, again, I go back to, I think this is the opportune time in our history to say, the problems are not that far removed, and all of us trying to work together, even with a budget shortfall. I believe that most of the things that the Association of Counties and Small County Coalition and other team members can do is going to be not a big cost, not a heavy lift at all. So I think we can help the Department of Economic Opportunity to get there. Chris Doolan, I'd like to give you an opportunity before I go to Mr. Commissioner Burrows. Would you like to add anything to the conversation today?
Yeah, I was asked to kind of focus on the statutory framework, but I'd like to share a few comments and then I'll back away because this is y'all's deal. This is a commissioner-driven organization, both the coalition and the Florida Association of Counties and the Rural Caucus. So I want to, as the government relations consultant to the Small County Coalition, I want to thank you, Commissioner Harvey, for allowing me to participate in this and to acknowledge that every member of the Rural Caucus is also a member of the coalition. They are the unified effort, and the caucus is simply a landing pad and entry point inside FAC to enable commissioners from the rural areas to talk about their issues. So with that, I want to commend your leadership and others, Terry Burrows and Chris Doherty and Ms. Bird and others, John Meeks, for engaging on this. This has gone on for several years at the direction of the Florida legislature. I remember in Cedar Key or Steinhatchee 3 years ago when Latvala, Bradley, and Munford pointed to John Meeks and said, you need to be the point on this. You need to get something going. So from that point, everybody's worked together. Yeah, there's no question that the internet is the key to success in so many areas. We're talking healthcare, public safety, education, the ability to communicate, the ability for Susie Seamstress to bill her clients in Sopchoppy, Florida on the internet. I mean, it's just absolutely. And it's the key for individuals and communities. I will tell you that you are not alone, and you're not wrong, Commissioner Harvey. The fact of the matter is, when the House Bill 969 passed, most of that legislation had been on the books since 2009. And it was a substantial portion of the statutory language itself was transferred over to DEO as an acknowledgement of the importance of economic opportunity. I guess it's a little more of a nimble and dynamic agency. We certainly have found that in our conversations with Dane Eagle, with Mario Rubio, and my good friend, Katie Smith, who has been tasked as the bureau chief or manager of the office to make this happen. She is fortunate and unfortunate to have this responsibility. But House Bill 969 provides the roadmap. And John and Larry, you guys have said what it's supposed to do, a strategic plan. It can be as broad as we want it to be with goals and strategies. It can be as short-term or long-term as we want it to be. It can include as much as we want it to include, but specifically in a key issue is it is needed in the state of Florida for Florida counties in the state to be more competitive for federal grants. Without that, we are hindered. That is the least of the important issues for us, but it is also very important. But we have seized on the opportunity. The executive committee of the Small County Coalition asked me to draft a white paper, which I did, and I've sent that out. It is not intended to be, quote, a plan. It is simply intended to poke the intellectual capability and expertise of leadership to do that. And that's what it is. And you have access to that. But let me tell you something very clearly. Two things. What about this coming legislative session? One, House Bill 969 specifically includes to encourage broadband internet services, especially in rural and underserved areas of the state through grant programs for effective strategies to facilitate statewide deployment of broadband internet. So any hesitancy, now whether or not that can be posted up now or not, with the economy and the revenue circumstances. The fact of the matter is, unless we provide some incentive to the private sector to have affordable, at least break even market plan, we're fooling ourselves, because people aren't there. They're not going to make a profit. They're not going to move there. So a major initiative here is incentives, and it's going to be private sector that does this. I want to say a second thing, and this is probably the most important thing to keep everybody focused, and everybody pay attention. Read Speaker Sproul's remarks from yesterday's opening session. He said, he called on the legislature to find the funding to build out the broadband infrastructure in rural Florida. Quote, of all the things he talked about, families, public safety, everything, one of them to energize rural Florida by finding the funding to build out broadband infrastructure. So Katie and others, as we prepare for this, clearly there's an interest to do that. We have requested the county to do the resolutions. We'll work closely with all of you. I want to say that as part of the broadband initiative paper on page 2, it requires up-to-date mapping. It requires partnerships. It requires support, collaborators with stakeholders. It requires establishing metrics. If we don't have effective mapping, and if we don't really know where our counties are, we cannot effectively assess progress. The other thing is, if local governments are already pursuing this in no way wants to slow anybody down. Okeechobee's on the move, Washington County's on the move, Hardee's on the move. We're like a ship of 67 containers. And the ship is the goal of providing affordable broadband to every, and if one of those containers feels that the ship isn't really fitting their scenario, offload, go for it. We're not slowing anybody down, but we want to have a focus on this. I so appreciate seeing Commissioner Greg Weiss on this call, who is also on the NACO task force. I so appreciate seeing Susan Adams on this call from Indian River County, one of our small counties, and Joe Mullins and Jeff Rogers and Jason Brown and the broad basis. Angela, I don't know what county you're from, but I really appreciate the broad base. This is not about specifically small counties. This is a 67 county initiative. It needs to be commissioner driven. All the organizations that you're involved in should adopt a position that says we support 969, we support the Department of Economic Opportunity, and we need to do whatever we can to help our good friend Katie Smith do what she needs to do, whether it's submitting your feasibilities, whether it's submitting your initiatives, whether we need to document what the heck is going on in Florida so that we all know exactly where we are, and then we can prioritize. So that is more than brief remarks, Mr. Chairman, but thank you for the opportunity, and I will try to keep my mouth shut. Thank you, sir. And by the way, I'm in my 6th day of isolation. This is a COVID isolation beard. I am negative, but as soon as I was exposed to an active COVID person, my wife kicked me out. So anyway, I'm here by myself with the remote control that I don't have to argue with my grandkids over. All righty. See you guys.
Thank you, Chris, and I appreciate the comments on that. I'm going to be asking Katie to speak in just a moment, briefly, if she will. But first, before I go to Commissioner Burrows and Ms. Smith, I want to ask Davin. Davin, would you like to say a few words at this point? Davin Suggs?
Hey, Commissioner, no, I'm listening and at the end before we close, I can come in and give people an update where FAC is, but I want to continue to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Katie, would you like to say a few words concerning your office and the charge that's been given through the House bill?
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity and including me in today's meeting. I appreciate the outreach from many of you. I appreciate the conversations that we have had so far. I look forward to how we can keep collaborating and partnering in the future. I think there is a lot of opportunity. I think there's some challenges, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I really want to encourage, send me what you have. What have you done, and help us figure out, who's where in what counties and what communities. We are working. I just had a meeting with Mario Rubio, my division director, about the workshops that we're going to do as part of our directives and statute, and getting those workshops together. We're hoping to schedule those starting in early January. We're going to work with the RPCs and the regional planning councils to identify who should be included. We've talked with the Florida Association of Counties. We've talked with Chris and Davin and Tiffany. We've talked to everybody. We're trying to make sure that we include the right people and from every organization that should be present. And we're trying to work on that agenda and make sure that we're asking the right questions and getting the right information for our strategic plan. So thank you again, and please reach out to me anytime. I would love to talk.
Well, Katie, I have a question for you, because I'm sure right now you're trying to drink from a fire hose, if you will. And let me make a comment. Some of the regional planning councils, we serve on those too. I mean, we overlap quite a bit. But has there been any communication in your office about, when we talk about matrix and information that we can give you, is there a standard that you would like it to come in, a format that you would like it to be presented to you so you could easily dissect it, versus us just sending up our stuff to you and then you trying to figure out where it fits at?
I haven't identified anything at this point in any proper format per se, but it's always helpful. It's always helpful. But no, at this point, let's just gather the information that we've got. My team in my office has been wonderful in helping me go through those different studies that we have received, and the conversations that we've had. We've done a lot of research. So I think we're doing okay so far, but I will absolutely reach out to you, Mr. Harvey, and let you know.
It is a very moving target, though, isn't it? Because you know what you think you know, you don't know, or you're not going to know, and the providers don't want you to know, or it's just like, come on, guys, let's be in the same room here for a moment.
Yeah, and I think at this point, getting to, I'm really looking forward to the workshops. I think it'll help really hone in for DEO, what the status is in different parts of the state. And every county is different, but at least we can maybe have a grouping of what's happening where and what direction they want to go. I mean, not everybody wants the same thing. So if the ultimate overall goal is just to get broadband out there, then that's a great goal. If the goal is for everybody to have fiber, that's a much more long-term goal. But maybe we need to talk about that. I don't know.
I understand. Okay, thank you, Katie. I appreciate it. May I call you Katie? You don't mind?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right, Commissioner Burrows, you're up if you don't mind. Time for you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Weiss. He's my counterpart over on the National Associations of Counties Broadband Task Force. And Greg, we had our first meeting the other day, and I think that it was kind of interesting just to listen of how this is going to be brought about through NACO. Is that you got government officials across the county and across the country who focus on trying to all the different challenges and opportunities that we faced on the underserved communities. I know we listened to an individual out of Idaho that they were lucky they didn't even have 911 service. How to do that. It was pretty interesting in terms of some of the concepts that were being exposed in this particular conversation we had on Monday. We have some counties that are way ahead of the game. We have some counties that are nowhere near the opportunity that some of us here in Florida have already, and specifically like the Idaho individual. But the task force is going to spend the next couple months or next few months examining the intersection of public and private sector effects of how to implement broadband networks with the aim of creating a blueprint for governments or local governments to work on to bridge the digital divide. So there's like four or five areas that we're working through. One is preparing for broadband, which is including the complete and accurate data, broadband surveys, feasibility studies. Some of the barriers that we are looking at that are going to prevent us from doing build outs. Some of these are just state imposed bans. Whether or not you do cellular versus fiber, those are that's another concept. I know some of my counterparts here in the state, as well as myself, we're looking strictly on a wireless broadband, which will be very beneficial to us because we have two service providers here that really don't see the return on the investment in order to provide any type of accessible broadband to a lot of our community in Okeechobee County. Digital divides, and the digital divide is kind of like really interesting. It spreads across not only just rural, but it's urban, tribal, ethnic, racial type of minorities. And so when we saw this whole thought process unfold on Monday, it was really interesting to see how badly COVID-19 has exposed various holes in our infrastructure relative to distance learning, telehealth, or just having accessibility to broadband as a whole. So ultimately, the task force is going to develop an overall report, which will include products and resources to assist local governments throughout these various stages. So we got 4 meetings that we're going to be working through. November 16th was our first meeting. We have another meeting starting in early January where we'll hear from various advisory councils on a wide range of topics from the scope and mission of the task force. The meeting will ensure that the work of this task force is going to effectively capture all of the challenges that communities across the nation have. Then we have another meeting in early February, and then our last meeting is pre-legislative conference where the task force members and the advisory council will have a final report on a broadband report and toolkit that we'll be offering out to the communities. One of the things that's really caused us a lot of problems is that everybody's heard about the broadband map. The broadband map that was created via the FCC is in some cases extremely inaccurate. In other cases, it's overinflated. We've seen that a lot of the wireless service providers have in certain cases overinflated their service sets. One of the issues is that it was focused on if you had broadband accessibility in one household within a census tract, that census tract was deemed to have a full broadband complement, and that's not correct. So accurate connectivity data is the foundation for any of these investments in broadband infrastructure. And unfortunately, the connectivity data, as I just articulated from the FCC Commission, is often inaccurate and inflated. So that leaves us from the rural counties kind of overlooked or disconnected overall. So NACO last year, when John and myself and other commissioners were in Washington, they introduced something called Test It. I'm going to have Tiffany in a few moments to bring it up and kind of give you, Arthur Scott is our counterpart in Washington. He's going to give you an overview of what Test It really does. But NACO partnered with a couple of different organizations, local initiatives, support corporations, national rural community assistance partnerships, and Farm Credit developed this mobile app designed to identify those areas with low or no connectivity to help ensure adequate funding for the broadband infrastructure. So this tested app can either be on it's on their iOS or Apple iPhone, or it can be an Android mobile app. You just go on to whatever store you have and you can download it. And what it happens is that it leverages a sampling tool designed by Measurements Lab to aggregate the broadband speeds across the country from different app users. So Commissioner Harvey has implemented this in his county. So people who are out working on the mowing the county, any place they are, they can just execute this app and they'll get a download or an upload of what type of speeds they're currently having at that specific location. And that information, with a single press of a button, will be able to test their broadband speed. It will be compared to internet speeds on a national average and the minimum standards established by the FCC. One thing to be ensured is that there is no personal information uploaded to Measurements Lab. A lot of people felt that, well, this particular app is an invasion of privacy. Well, there's no public or private information or personal information ever collected off of the app itself. So the snapshot of that sample is sent to a database which allows NACO and the partners to analyze the connectivity data across the county or country. That information to identify the broadband services, whether it's overstated or underfunded, by comparing the data to the national broadband map. So what we're asking for today is twofold. I think one, you heard about the resolution. We would ask for each one of the counties to implement. I just sent Okeechobee counties up to Mario last night, and he sent me back a nice note this morning. And the second thing we'd like to do is for your folks to download this app on your PCs or on your mobile phones and have your people go out and test, implement this wherever they're at any given time, so that we can start helping to implement a better broadband map. Now, some of this is really interesting. I mean, the broadband map is important, but we talked about a little bit earlier is that we've got a lot of some of the communities in the state of Florida are already moving ahead with different variations of this. So one thing to look at is that, yes, where Greg and I are working at right now, we're trying to develop something at a very high level to help the counties and the communities across the United States. Katie's working at the state level, and then you got guys like myself and Trey Hawkins. We're looking in terms of implementing something in our particular communities to help our education focus, our telehealth, but more and over just to help our communities overall, trying to get accessible internet speeds here in our communities. So there's a lot of things going on, and we'd really like your help in downloading this app and see if we can help access or get the accessibility to the map a little bit better. Do you want to be able to, can you pull up the tested video and let folks take a look at it?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Can we, right before we do that, do you mind if I interrupt real quick, Commissioner Burrows and Mrs. Henderson on so I've got it on my phone. I've had it ever since Terry went up to DC and told us about it. And just to give you an idea, so right now I just did the test it, and it's letting me know my download speed is 6.28 megabytes per second. My upload is 2.08. And then right below that, it lets me know that that the FCC benchmark, that I have not reached that threshold. So the FCC download benchmark is 25. I'm at 6.28. This, Commissioner Harvey, is at a time when I don't have to worry about that 4 o'clock threshold. At that point, I'm usually lucky to get 1. So that just gives you an idea of, what I'm dealing with out here in rural Okeechobee.
Well, I appreciate Commissioner Burrows and Commissioner Owens for bringing that up. I mean, that's reality. There's no doubt about it. It's not something that we're creating and making up. I just ran it on my phone too. I'm at 4.12 download, 4.12 upload. That's reality, and it's way below the benchmark that the FCC. And as Commissioner Burrows mentioned, just because the FCC thinks that in the census tract that one person might have high-speed internet, everybody does. That's just unrealistic. It's very unrealistic. So Commissioner Burrows, I want to thank you for your comments, and you did an outstanding job representing NACO you and Commissioner Weiss did. So, and I appreciate the work that you're doing at the NACO level. Tiffany, are you ready to start that video?
Yes, sir. I'm going to share my screen and I'll press play.
Okay. We can't hear it, Tiffany.
Tiffany, if you'll stop the share, when you go to share the video, there's 2 check boxes at the bottom. If you'll check both of those, we'll be able to hear the audio.
Becky, can you repeat that? I stopped the share. Do I go back to the share screen?
Go back to your share screen, and then you'll see 2 little check boxes at the bottom of that pop-up window that's going to say like share audio.
Okay.
Check both of those, and then when you proceed, we'll be able to hear the video.
See, it is good for
I
Becky.
see. Share sound. Okay. Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm
We
trying
love
it
it.
again.
Thanks, guys.
Let's try this again.
Accurate connectivity data is the foundation for investments in broadband infrastructure. Unfortunately, connectivity data provided by service providers to the Federal Communications Commission is often inaccurate and inflated, leaving many rural communities overlooked and disconnected. That's why NACO has partnered with the Local Initiative Support Corporation and the Rural Community Assistance Partnership to develop Test It, a mobile app designed to identify areas with little or no connectivity to help ensure adequate funding for broadband infrastructure is provided across the country. The Test It app uses a network diagnostics tool designed by Measurement Labs to test users' upload and download speeds. With the press of a single button, users can test their broadband speed from anywhere. Additionally, users are able to compare their internet speeds to the national average and the minimum standards established by the Federal Communications System. To get started, download the app from the App Store on your phone. The app is completely free and available on both Android and Apple platforms. Then, open the app and click Test Speed Here. You can rest assured that no personal information will be collected through the app. Because there's many factors contributing to connectivity speeds, it's also important to remember to test frequently and in as many places as possible. A snapshot of each sample will be sent to an open source database at Measurement Labs to allow NACO and our partners to analyze connectivity data across the country. The data collected through this app will help identify areas where broadband service is overstated and underfunded by comparing it to the FCC's National Broadband Map. With your help identifying gaps in our national broadband coverage, we can shed light on this critically important issue and make substantive changes to the process for reporting broadband service. You can learn more if you visit www.naco.org/testit.
Tiffany, thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Burrows, thank you for having that queued up and ready to go.
I'll put the link in the chat.
One
The
last thing.
link to that video.
Okay, Commissioner Burrows?
Yeah, one last thing is that I'd be remiss in just asking Commissioner Weiss if he's still on here, if he'd like to just to have some comments about what, if anything I missed on the task force piece.
Thank you.
Hey, hi guys. Terry, I think you did a great job presenting what's happened so far and where we're headed. I think it's important to note though that this is something, used to, when I first joined NACO a couple of years ago, it was all about simply just rural broadband. But what the pandemic has illuminated to so many communities, this is way beyond just our rural counties. It's our urban areas, our suburban areas that are all, struggling with this. And I think bringing together, the large counties, the small counties, together, we're going to be able to lobby and to get the resources to really move this country into the 21st century, because it's been made very, very clear to everybody how deficient we are and how important it is to us for all the reasons that everybody has already mentioned. So I'm also very honored to be representing the state of Florida in all our counties with NACO and making sure that all our voices are heard.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that comment. I'd be remiss also if I didn't call on Commissioner Mullins. He was the vice chair of the NACO Broadband Initiative, and I want to call on him for his remarks from what he has dealt with in the past.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can, sir.
All right. Yeah, I just want to, last year it was vice chair, and the year before I served on it. I moved over to the economic development because we kind of need that in the area. We've already started our initiative to get
Commissioner Mullins, you are breaking up really bad.
But what I was going to tell you, I'm from Augusta, Georgia. Augusta, Georgia started this in 2014. We came up.
Commissioner Mullins, you are not there.
I think we may have lost him altogether.
Okay. Well, we only have about 3 minutes left of our meeting, so I do want to try to keep us on time. If he joins us back, Tiffany, will you let me know? Okay.
I will.
I do have a question for Miss Katie there. This is coming from Commissioner Owens. Has any funding been allocated to the effort of your department? And the second question, what do you see we can do to help you be successful in your endeavor?
Hey, Commissioner Mullins is back, FYI.
Okay, well, let's let Katie answer the question, and I'll get back to Commissioner Mullins, okay?
So there has not been any funding allocated to our program. What I probably need help with is identifying if there is any funding that I have missed or overlooked. We have applied for federal funding. We did not receive the EDA grant that we applied for back in June. There was no funding that was allocated pertaining to the bill. And so any funds would be helpful so that we can make sure that we're getting exactly, completing exactly what we need to be completing. And, I think just keeping the conversation going right now is probably the best thing to talk about, the direction that we need to go.
Okay. Tiffany, thank you, Katie, for that. Commissioner Mullins is back on the line.
Yeah, sorry, guys. A great example why broadband's so important.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't have illustrated it better. I'm traveling, so I'm actually traveling back to Augusta, Georgia right now. But what I was going to say is in 2014, we came up with a private-public program in Augusta of laying broadband. We laid it in a record time. After starting, we had to adjust a little bit. We had to go more to the private sector because AT&T, Comcast, all of them took a bunch of money. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. They said it was too expensive. So the county kind of jumped on it and did a private public with a co-op. To make a long story short, we came up with a very extensive plan. I'm doing it in Flagler right now. Within 24 months of doing it, I don't know if you guys realize Augusta was named cyber capital of the world, and it's where they put their cyber defense for the military. And it was because of the broadband being so spacious and out there available. It's caused properties to skyrocket. It's caused just a whole new education form coming in. So it's really changed that community. Second to the Masters, it's what it's known for now. But I will share that. I don't mind sharing that with you guys. A lot of it is going to be programs where we went to certain apartment complexes, certain large developers, and they put it in their developments, and they got to buy it and then wholesale it back to their customers. So there's so many private-public partnerships, and the county basically leased the lines, they own the lines and they leased it to the co-op, and then the co-op did all the other deals. But why the co-op was so important, they're able to do deals that we as government officials can't do, because if we end up, I'm sorry, are y'all there?
Yes,
If
we're
we
here.
if we end up doing them, it looks like we're giving favoritism to certain businesses or certain people, and the co-ops have a little more free opportunity. But I don't mind sharing that, sharing the program. But it's got some very interesting, and there's a lot of state funding, national funding, state-wise in Georgia, but in Florida, I'm sure we can duplicate some of it. But there's a lot of national funding. And then one thing we tapped into was co-ops and private businesses funded. They put a tremendous amount of money in it to be part of that movement and part of the program that we brought in.
Well, Commissioner Mullins, let's talk more about that on Thursday, December 3rd up in
Let's do it.
Jacksonville. And we appreciate your comments and didn't mean to leave you out at no means by that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You're fine.
Tiffany, it has been requested, I saw that you responded that you'll make the documents available that people are asking for the resolution.
Yes, the resolution will be made available. FAC will send out a communications email following up to this meeting, but we will have that out next week.
Okay, Devin had to leave us. He had a lobbyist meeting he had to go to, so we'll have to wait for his comments when we get to Jacksonville. I'm sorry we don't have a whole lot of time for questions. We are running over, so I want to thank you for joining our call today. Please join us at the Rural Caucus meeting at the Florida Association of Counties Legislative Conference in Duval County on Thursday, December 3rd at 3 o'clock. You can be in person or virtual. Commissioner Burrows, before I let the meeting go, would you like to introduce who's going to be at the meeting in Jacksonville that you've invited?
Okay, we have the director of DEO, which is the Dane Eagle. He just got that opportunity, and we had a meeting with him and Mario and his staff a couple of weeks ago with the Rayos, and so we're looking forward to having him come in. And Mario is going to be there. I don't know if Katie's coming or not, but Mario has said he's coming to do a little bit of a presentation for us. And then I think we're going to have Arthur Scott or Matt Chase from NACO. I think they're going to be remote because I think they still cannot travel out of NACO right at the present time. But we're going to have a pretty good lineup for information sharing for folks. So we hope to see all the folks there at the Rural Caucus.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Burrows, and I want to thank you for joining the call. Commissioner Meeks, Small County Coalition, a friend of ours, that we appreciate you being on the call today. Commissioner Byrd, look forward to seeing you in Jacksonville and talking broadband and workforce and affordable housing. And if there's nothing else good that's pressing right now, we are 4 minutes over. So I will end this webinar. Thank you very much for attending.